The market's not chasing one keyword at a time anymore, but instead longer queries with longer answers. Because that's how we are communicating. It's no longer the era of the best online casino, but instead the most safe casino for me to play blackjack. And this, the whole practice of it all, is what Semantic SEO is here to help. And it is how you are gonna get found, especially for those new players in iGaming. Our guest is Luis Salazar Jurado, one of the biggest semantic SEO experts in the entire world, especially for e-commerce and right now in iGaming. We'll keep it practical, how a bonus page should be read, how to link slots providers and casinos all at the same time, and of course, understanding when content is enough. After all, sometimes it can do more harm than good. As usual, I'm your host, Victor Julio Coupé from Kensho Media, and this is Luis. Some years ago, we chased keywords. What works now so an iGaming page actually gets found in this cluttered market that we're in?
Well, as you mentioned, the old paradigm was keyword to document, and now it's pivoting to queries to answers, which means in the iGaming niche, there are still plenty of profitable terms, profitable keywords like three terms keyword that are very profitable. But users in general are searching with more and more terms in the query, and in the query, it's moving from three terms to 7 terms or 8 terms. What's the keyword there? In 3 terms, it's easier to identify the keyword, but in 8 terms, it's very hard. So the concept keyword to document is getting obsolete, and now it's query to answer, which means you have to structure the page or the content itself in a way that answers the query, especially in semantic SEO. Semantic search engine can only group 3 things: users, queries, and documents. Documents could be any piece of information that answer the query. The user is the human that is in the search, and the query is what they type on Google or any other search engine. So what happened is the old system, like put the keyword in the title, heading H1, heading H2, the body, the anchor tag, and so on and so forth. It's working, but it's not working as well as in the past. Now you have to structure the page in a meaningful way in order to provide the information more accurately, so a semantic search engine can digest all that data and understand way better what are you selling, basically, either if it is a casino or a
Mhm.
slot or a game or anything.
Okay, so we are moving from the best online casino to the which one is the safest casino that I can play at.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
And should companies, especially those in iGaming, start now understanding better about what are these longer queries? Like, is it the one that I just said? Is it another one? Is it what is the cheapest casino? What is the most safe? What is the most prestigious one? Should they go for all of these different keywords so that they can get found under longer queries?
Most tools are not going to provide that information. It's tasks that the SEOs have to develop, which means you need more research in order to understand user type on Google and in different interfaces in order to get that information. And then how are you going to structure a page in order to target those questions? So maybe you should add more questions and answer in the FAQ section,
Mhm.
or maybe you have to rewrite a heading in order to make it a question, because a question could be implicit question or explicit question, and then structure the content according to how the user are searching.
Okay. Okay, that's great. And even when we're talking about multiple regions, the FAK page should be in different languages as well, right? We're not only talking about keeping yourself in one language, or should we allow Google to use its translating feature and only write one page in English?
Depends on the market you're targeting, because you can also be blocked based on the location. But let's say there are several countries where you can target several languages, especially in the Northern Europe. Or another example is Poland, when in Eastern Poland, people are searching Russian. So it could be advisable to provide the content both in Polish and in Russian, because there are people searching in both languages, and you provide the question and answer accordingly in each language in order to target those markets, because there are possibilities with only writing the content in English. The semantic search engine is going to translate based on the query intent, but it is easier for a semantic search engine to provide the content in the same language the user is targeting. I have experience in other SEO niches where even though you only have the content in English, people are searching from Portugal, Italy, China, Norway, Hungary, and other countries are landing exclusively on the content in English because in this case is an e-commerce. In e-commerce, other niches, Google Translate automatically based on the query because a semantic search engine is language agnostic, which means once the entity is clear for a semantic search engine, even though the content is only in English, the query could be in any language as long as the search engine do the match because they understand what the user want. Again, going back to a semantic search engine can group users, queries, and documents. If the query is in English or in a different language, but they identify the entity and the user is typing that, it doesn't matter the document if it is exclusively in English because the document answer the query. So for instance, there is a event in northern Spain, in Pamplona, which is called the Running of the Bulls. That site, I work with a site which is exclusively written in English. And over the last 9 years, I've been working with these guys 9 years now, we've seen how queries have evolved, which means at the beginning, the market was US, UK, and Australia. That's where the site originally was created in English exclusively. But even though we haven't translated the content in other languages, we are getting queries from Portugal, Italy, China, Norway, etc. Why? Because the users are searching, but maybe at the beginning they search in the all languages and then they end up searching in English because maybe the information they search in the original language is not good enough. That's why they refine the query in English and they land in that e-commerce. Because of historical data, Google has been tracking all those searches, how the user interact, and so on and so forth, and then they give you the traffic.
Yeah, I'm actually one that used to do this back in Brazil, let's say 10 years ago. There wasn't AI overviews or anything like that. So
Yes.
not even Reddit was super strong. So I would search first in Portuguese to see what was available. I wouldn't always be satisfied, so I would switch to English. And there we go. I found the answers usually in English. Huge market, more people talking about.
More
So
information.
interesting to see. Yes, more
Mhm.
information and usually more precise information,
Yeah.
especially if I was searching about tech. There will be more conversations happening all over the world about that same product, usually in the USA or UK, than it was in Brazil. So I believe it's the same thing we're talking here. But what about thinking only on top of my head here? Let's pretend that I am a casino and I have a casino's bonus page. What sections besides FAQ, besides homepage, must be there so people and Google, of course, see that that casino truly covered the topic?
I'm going to give an example in the Spanish market. Is the market I'm working right now. Even though we share the same language with most South American countries,
Mhm.
just including one term or another trigger a different results. For instance, even though we share the Spanish language, there are nuances and details and terms that are written differently in Argentina, Mexico, etc. So those little details are the one that are going to move the needle in order to answer again the queries of the users. So it depends on the market. You have to be very picky, very careful with the terms you use in order to narrow down the universe of data and to make it easier for a search engine to understand what you sell, what market are you targeting, in this case, the kind of casino or the kind of slot or whatever you're targeting. Because again, we are talking about a lot of variables. You can be blocked
True.
and that's not a very good user experience. And then eventually you're going to be demoted. So you have to balance the terms you're going to target, how you structure the content, how you create the content, and then the markets you're targeting.
Talking about having pages, then, beyond having one page only, how should these companies group related pages so that the site makes sense? So we have, let's say, a big one. We have slots, we have providers, we have bonuses, we have FAQ, we have user, we have blog, we have testimonials, we have a lot of things.
Mhm.
How should they group it all? How should we structure this so that it's all indexed and crawled?
Well, the best option is to define the topical map properly in order to balance the topic you want to target, and then create all the content related to that in order to help that cover the topical coverage, which means, again, which market are you targeting, which topics are you going to write about, and then all of that had to be in balance. So a semantic search engine is going to compare your content, your brand, your signals against other brands, and then the overall goal is that the cost of retrieval on your site is lower than the other side, and you're gonna rank higher because to understand your site is cheaper compared to the other site, and on top of that, you provide more answers to more queries, or more, let's say you solve more problems just with one site or with one piece of content. That's the competitive advantage in semantic SEO terms.
Is it a problem to maybe have too much information on your website? Is it a problem to go the extra mile and literally go to ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT about the top 100 questions asked for a casino slot website and then put those 100 questions in your FAQ? Or should we go for less but with higher quality in regards to what those questions are?
That case, that approach would be diluting the context because you would be targeting a lot of information, but all that information have to again be crawled, parsed, and organized. The thing is, are you answering your users' questions? Which means, again, we go back to the trifecta: queries, users, and documents. Documents is all the information you mentioned. You're going to create ridiculous amount of content, these documents. But do the users type in the query are going to match those answers? If it makes sense,
That's the point.
if it makes sense, yes. If it doesn't make sense, you shouldn't create that content. But again, even Google have limited resources, which means you have to structure the content and organize the information properly in order to make it easier for them to understand what you sell, what's your target market, what are your users, and then match the queries that the user type with your documents. So that way, the name of the game is easier for them because the resources that are going to spend in order to crawl your site, parse your content, organize the information is cheaper than compared to other casinos or other affiliate sites.
How about testing pages, how we test our games, sources, who's our providers, safer gambling, this educational part of it all? Should we also implement these pages without slowing the reader down at any time? Or would you rather have quick snippets or maybe boxes within the website that can make it all easier to read? Because given what we have just talked, it's always interesting, as you said right now, to match the questions the user is typing on Google. But what if we don't want to do that for a specific part segment of our website just because we want to add extra information that's not entirely a decision making information? It's not going to be even a deal breaker for people, but it's still extra for those who want to take a step further into understanding who I am. Should casinos invest their time into building these pages or not?
Well, my approach would be, first of all, you need to spend way more time trying to understand your customers, in this case, the users, and try to create only the content that is going to satisfy their intent, what they want. Why? Because the internet has grown so big. This week, I read an article about that more than 50% of the content on the internet is now created by AI, and that 50% is not quality, which means
No.
there's a lot of noise and it's going to be even more noise. So how are you going to stand out from the crowd in so much noise? The only option is to narrow down the information that you have on your page in order to target your audience more specifically. So all that historical data, user engagement, user signals are going to be stronger related to your site compared to other sites. Why? Because users are going to search, are going to land on your page, are going to be happy with what they found, and then create a virtuous cycle that is going to benefit you with more rankings and more traffic. So, in my opinion, the name of the game is not creating content for the sake of creating content, but only create content when it makes sense and you're covering the topical map in the right proportion, in the right priority in order to satisfy the user. I mean, for decades, Google has been telling us focus on the user. We believe it was a joke, but nowadays I think it's even more strong signal, especially with Nav Boost. The tests we have seen in viral traffic that is book to bust viral traffic doesn't work because Google is tracking all that data, and unless they have historical data, user engagement, user satisfaction, and all those signals going in alignment, you're not gonna get the boost in the traffic.
That's a great one. Luis, last question for you. If a casino is maybe holding its efforts until the beginning of 2026, what should they definitely do? Maybe as a first thing, even talking about semantic SEO, talking about SEO as a whole, to make sure that they will have higher chances of winning in the next year?
Brand awareness, brand recognition, brand mention, and brand searches is a topic we haven't covered yet, and is what I would do in order to maximize the probabilities to rank higher. Because Google is, let's say, ranking higher brands that everybody knows, and brand search volume and brand search demand is a key component, is a ranking factor in my opinion. And you can check countless SEO studies nowadays where, I mean, because they have to create a kind of system in order to protect themselves against spam, which is if you are recognized as a brand, you have your knowledge panel, people search for your brand, they're happy with their product or the service you provide, you create a kind of signal that are trustworthy. So that way Google can rely on some data and rank that data. So if I were a casino, what I would do is create a brand, create a knowledge panel, combine that with brand search demand, traffic from paid, social, influencers, and so on and so forth. And on top, the cherry on top would be the SEO strategy and approach holistically. So that way, Google perceive your casino, your brand as a credible source, and then your probabilities to rank higher in any search engine increase massively.
That's nice to know, and that also circles back to the conversation that I had with John Wright here in the Kensho Media channel, where he does talk a lot about building your authority, not SEO related but brand related.
Yes.
Making sure that the brand is over there, making sure that you're talking to the users, to the customers, newsletters, podcasting, going to bigger events, everything that you just said. We had an entire episode of the Square Table, which you can click down below to check it out right now. Luis, I think this is all the time we had. Thank you so much for being on the show. Do you have any lasting or closing statements before we go?
Would like to say, think about a project holistically, which means all the signals have to be in alignment. If it is good for the business, it's good for the SEO, which includes also reputation and PR. And if you put all the pieces of the puzzle together and you approach it holistically and put everything in order, chances are you're gonna get more traffic, more leads, and better rankings.